that. So the status quo. Merriam-Webster defines the status quo as the existing state of affairs. It's normality and it's routine and it's comforting. And it's comforting because of that familiarity. There's a reason why establishing set schedules helps with anxiety. So you have the routine. It's you wake up, you go to school or work, you go home, eat, work out, type 5 words of that essay that's due on Monday, sleep, rinse, repeat. Capital Therapy Project co-founder Dr. Brenner states that establishing these schedules helps us to adjust and to alleviate that innate fear of the unknown. So why are so many people so scared and yet so eager to step out of that comfort zone? Well, I think it's impossible to fully embrace discomfort. There's always going to be a part of you that yearns to stay where you are. It's human nature. So that's why having these experiences that change you and bring discomfort are so important in garnering new perspectives and new ideas. And the first step in that is mindset. So a lot of people say, the idea without the initiative is just that, an idea. But without the idea, there's no opportunity at all for initiative. So I remember once in 8th grade for our school's passion project, I told my teacher that I wanted to invent something. And then he asked me, well, what do you want to invent? And I said, probably something useful. So I just ended up painting a picture instead, and it still turned out pretty cool. I just sometimes wonder, what could have come out of certain situations if I had just thought about it from a different angle or thought about it a little more. So, So this is what I feel like most people think of. Oh wait, my bad, sorry. Let me go back. Thank you guys for your patience. But so when most people think of unconventional thinking, most of the time we think of the synonyms new, innovative, original, and obviously these are valid options. They all make sense in this topic. However, they all sort of imply that unconventional thinking has to lead to something valuable, and that might not necessarily be true. So take this conference, for instance. If I told you all to count how many people are in the room right now, that would be a new piece of knowledge. It wouldn't be in, your textbooks or Mark Zuckerberg's databases or anything like that, because that's, a new piece of knowledge that we created just now. But other than the TEDx Club, nobody really cares. The information just simply isn't valuable. So, that begs the question, then, is unconventional thinking always valuable, and is it always even new? So this is what I feel most people think of when it comes to unconventional thinking. So, it's the box of normality. And, again, it's not an incorrect representation. Ever since elementary school, we've been told, think outside of the box. Because solutions are things you pluck from the sky and not the little dust bunnies collecting the corner of some random box. So then I want to ask, does defining conventionality, what does unconventionality mean? Well, I think defining conventionality at all can actually, restrain innovation sometimes, because implying that conventionality is inside the box and we have to somehow, cut ourselves outside of the box can actually limit how we problem solve in our innovation. So when I talk about creativity, I want to, introduce some audience participation here. So how many of you guys would say that you are a creative person? Just a quick show of hands. Okay, that's pretty good. So we can test that really quickly using the Walk and Kogan creativity tests, which are a series of tests where basically participants come up with, as many items as they can part of a general group. So for the next 20 seconds, I'm gonna continue yapping about creativity, but I would like you guys to think of as many things as you can in your head that are round. Okay, so I'm gonna set the mental timer right now. You guys can get to thinking. But basically, when drafting this experiment, Walk and Kogan, they viewed creativity as an aspect of thinking. So they basically saw it as, someone's capability to generate cognitive ideas, but just differing in terms of uniqueness and individuality. Okay, so that's about 20 seconds, and we can take a quick moment to reflect on that. So how many people came up with more than 5 items? Okay, let's begin. More than 10? More than 15? None? Okay. Oh, 1 person. Okay, good job. But yeah, that's why I feel like these tests demonstrate it really well, and not only because of, like, obviously how many responses can be generated, but they also used a unique scoring system in which they tallied up not only the number of responses, but also, the type of response. So if a response was metaphorical in nature rather than physical, that would give you more points. So that's why I feel like this experiment really demonstrates that really well. So coming back to this visual representation, I sat down and I thought really long and hard about what I feel like could be a more accurate representation. And this is what I came up with. And I call this the infinite toddler limb model. Because you know how toddlers can't really draw? So this circle is just the body, and then the limbs are just like little lines jutting out of the circle. But now there's infinite limbs. But basically, each body or circle represents a problem or a topic, idea, and then each limb represents a thought. And these thoughts, sometimes they'll connect, or they'll go really far before like hitting a snag, and sometimes they'll really only make it like a millimeter out. I feel like unconventional thinking, it's really just this map of ideas that they stop, go, switch direction, meet other thoughts, fall in love, start a little family. Like there really isn't a limit to what these thoughts can do. And I feel like that's where unconventional thinking really gets its power from. Oh, and there's a lot of historical examples that demonstrate this. So for example, the concept of heliocentrism is one that I thought of really often when I was outlining this talk. So, the way Copernicus's idea and Galileo's work, they challenged the notion that the Earth was the center of the universe, and rather that the sun was, setting the foundation for modern astronomy today. And even though we accept that as fact nowadays, like back in the 16th century, like nobody believed him. Like people were throwing tomatoes and vegetables at the guy. But then again, we look at the flip side, and we look at times when unconventional thinking might not necessarily yield such groundbreaking results. So for example, if we just take a look at the flat earthers, I once talked to this girl who tried really, really hard to convince me that the Earth had to be flat, because if it was round, the people living by the equators and by the South Pole would just fall off. And I thought that was a creative and unconventional idea. But I feel that conspiracy theories like the one I just mentioned, they arise from the human tendency to try and fill in gaps in understanding with really any information we have on hand, even if sometimes it's not as accurate, or if sometimes it's just straight up absurd. But it's the way that in times of in the spirit of a mystery, these unconventional ideas just seem to make sense in our heads as if they were red strings connected on a corkboard. Like it's the way that unconventionality, it can, no matter the accuracy or critical thought behind it, can dictate the beliefs and truths of such massive groups of people. And there are times in history where groups of people have utilized this and exploited the mob mentality and people's own truths and ideas against them because of these unconventional ideas. So this is one of my favorite examples, and there's actual historical documentation of this. But basically, in the 1950s, there was this widespread rebel group called the Huks in the Philippines, and they really made the US officials really worried because of rising Cold War tensions and the communist ties behind the whole group. So basically, to get rid of them, the CIA spread rumors of this Filipino vampire called Aswang, like roaming the woods where the Huks were generally gathered. And then they ended up actually puncturing and draining the blood of one of the Huk rebel leaders. Like essentially they faked a vampire attack. And it worked to an extent. Like obviously there were other factors involved, but after this, many of the Huk groups, they disbanded and they retreated. So it's the way that these unconventional thoughts, they are so crucial in shaping both individual perception and public opinion. And these alternate explanations that are characteristic of unconventionality, they're the things that make sense in our minds. So moving on to the big question, how important is unconventional thinking and how do you do it? So does living unconventionally have to mean the opposite of living by the books? So I think the results of unconventional thinking, which is broadly becoming, a more interesting and well-rounded person, is also the quality that allows someone to fully harness the potential of unconventional thinking itself. So essentially, it's creating this cycle that bolsters, innovation and creativity in a person the same way that entropy naturally increases in the universe. And this TED Talk, I feel, is actually a really good example of that, because all of my individual lived experiences have contributed to, every single one of the thoughts that I'm sharing with you guys today. And in return, I get to step out of my personal comfort zone and use the thoughts that I've, gained from these TED Talks to pull from in the future. So I feel like that unconventional thinking, the power and the beauty of it comes from the cycle. Like, there's no box you need to crawl out of, there's no step-by-step manual you need to follow. It's just a cycle, and you can supplement it and get rid of things whenever you want, like there are no restraints. So then I feel that unconventional thinking, it's really all just about, embracing that curiosity, embracing the ambiguity, and then being able to find yourself throughout all the outcomes that come from the decisions you make from unconventional thinking. Thank you.